Call this public meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection for our servicemen and women throughout the world, and also for those who have passed away in our community, especially retired firefighter Donald Love. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Here.
Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Dr. Rothschild?
Here.
Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Mr. Donahue?
Here.
I'd like to make a motion to take from the table file of the council number 36, 2022.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second to take from the table file of council number 36, 2022. This piece of legislation is being taken from the table and placed into fifth order for introduction. It is the rental ordinance for 2022. On the question?
On the question, I raised some issues last week. Included in this legislation are positions, housing inspector positions that have not yet been approved by the 2023 budget, and also some language that states that. I will, I guess, pass it through for introduction, but I will raise some questions and maybe language change before final passage.
Thank you. Anyone else on the question?
I also pose some questions that I'll expect some answers before. I'll vote to introduce, but before final passage, I'd like them answered.
Anyone else on the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
I'd like to make a motion to take from the table resolution number 161, 2022.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second to take from the table resolution number 161, 2022. This piece of legislation is being taken from the table and placed in fifth order for introduction. It's the appointment of Krista Murray to the Scranton Housing Authority. On the question?
On the question, the administration has passed 30 days for appointment of this position. I think I've stated it maybe over the last 2 weeks. I did request some of the other applicants so council could take a look. I would like to see council appoint this position. There was an attempt to reappoint the last person in the seat, however, that has been taken off of the agenda. I wouldn't mind taking a look at the applicants and having council do it since that is our ordinance that's on the books.
Anyone else on the question?
Yes, on the question, I have similar reservations. And okay, does the mayor have the ability, or should she appoint to the housing authority? Yes, it's her responsibility. But after 30 days, it's our responsibility. And so when it didn't happen, the gentleman who was previously on the board didn't resign. He sent a letter and requesting to stay. So an easy fix would just actually reappoint him. We tried to do that. It was removed. And then all of a sudden there's an appointment coming down from administration. But it's, I'll vote to introduce so I can vote no on it later, because my vote will be one of, my no vote will be one of principle and procedure.
Anyone else on the question?
I'm going to vote no, not to introduce, because I would have liked to have seen the other applicants.
Anyone else on the question?
On the question, I'm going to yield to the mayor on the decision of who she wants serving on her boards and commissions. I don't have a problem with this candidate. In fact, I think she's very qualified to serve on the Housing Authority Board and has a lot of experience working with housing in the community. And so I'll be voting to take this from the table tonight and to introduce it.
Anyone else on the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
The ayes have it, and so moved.
sorry. I would like to make a motion to take from the table Resolution Number 143 of 2022.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second to take from the table Resolution Number 143, 2022. This piece of legislation is being taken from the table and placed in seventh order for a final vote. It is the liquor license transfer for Vincenzo's. On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so move. Please dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Third order, 3A, October OpenGov report for licenses and permits received November 15, 2022, from the Office of Economic and Community Development. 3B, cumulative license permits report received November 15, 2022, from the Office of Economic and Community Development. 3C, controller's report for the month ending October 31st, 2022. 3D, minutes of the Scranton Firefighters Pension Commission meeting held October 19th, 2022. 3E, minutes of the Non-Uniform Municipal Pension Board meeting held on October 19th, 2022. 3F, agenda for the Non-Uniform Municipal Pension Board meeting held on November 16th, 2022. 3G, minutes of the Scranton Police Pension Commission meeting held October 19th, 2022. 3H, minutes of the Ethics Board meeting held September 21st, 2022. 3I, OpenGov monthly code enforcement report for October 2022, as received from the Office of Economic and Community Development. 3J, minutes of the Composite Pension Board meeting held October 19th, 2022. 3K, correspondence received from the city's Business Administration Office dated November 15th, 2022, regarding updated payroll preparation tax collections. 3L, letter of resignation to Scranton City Council dated November 18th, 2022, from Council President Kyle Donahue.
Are there any comments on any of the third order items? If not, received and filed. Do any council members have any announcements at this time?
I have an announcement that due to the Thanksgiving holiday this week, the garbage and recycling pickup will be delayed by 1 day this week. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any other council members have any announcements?
I have a couple. So, first of all, I'd like to wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving, surrounded by family and really good food. Secondly, Friends of the Poor just wrapped up their Thanksgiving dinner at 5:30. I'm proud to say that my students were involved in that process today, prepared a bunch of turkeys, carved them, made gravy. It was a great community service project for my students. Secondly, now, so Friends of the Family are continuing to serve the public tomorrow by having a drive-through Thanksgiving food basket giveaway. It's going to be from 9 a.m. tomorrow to 5 p.m. at the Scranton Cultural Center. Also, this weekend, a friendly reminder, it's the 10th annual McAndrew Family Cookies for Kids Cancer Bake Sale. That's my family. I'm very proud of them and my students' involvement. It's going to be at the Career Technology Center on 3201 Rockwell Avenue from 12 to 2. Cookies are $5 a dozen, or you can donate on our page, our Facebook page. And this money raised is for less toxic treatment for children with cancer. So it's a worthy cause, well-worthy cause. And then third, Scranton Police Department is going to have a toy drive fundraiser Friday, December 2nd at 5 p.m. at Laceworks Tap and Grill, 524 Court Street, Scranton, PA. Please bring a new unwrapped toy. Enjoy special pricing on beverages and appetizers. There'll be music, Danny the DJ, and there'll be a photo booth, all right, and some free keepsakes. And that is all I have.
Do any other council members have any announcements?
Yes, I have one. I find it important to mention tonight the shooting that happened over the weekend at Club Q in Colorado Springs, where 5 were killed and 19-plus people were wounded. I wanted to name the people who were killed in that shooting who included Daniel Aston, Kelly Loving, Ashley Pogg, Derek Rump, Raymond Green Vance. And thank you to veteran and former Army Major Richard Fierro, who was able to subdue the gunman in that attack so that he could be handed over to the police, and hopefully justice will be served. LGBTQ clubs like Club Q are meant to be safe havens for people, somewhere that they could feel safe and comfortable to be who they are. It should not be a place that you now fear going to for risk of being killed or injured by someone who's targeting the LGBTQ community. So this violence has to stop. I'm constantly disgusted by the shootings that occur within our country, and this one personally affects the community dear and close to my heart. So that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any other council members have any announcements? I just have a couple. Council held an executive session with the city solicitor and HR director on Thursday, November 17th, before a budget caucus to discuss personnel. I also just want to take a second to acknowledge former council member Bob McGough. I knew Bob growing up through his wife Marita, who's probably the main reason I didn't get kicked out of Nativity Grade School when I was a kid. But I came to deeply respect and admire Bob for the way in which he conducted himself from this chair in this chamber. Bob brought decorum back to these chambers after a pretty dark period by simply treating everyone with dignity, respect, and kindness. I've tried my best to emulate him by living up to the standard he set. Former mayor and former council member Wayne Evans used to speak on Bob McGough on the anniversary of his passing, which was this past Saturday, November 19th. It's been 7 years since Mr. McGough passed away. And former Mayor Evans read Mr. McGough's words that he spoke at this council meeting when he himself was going through a courageous battle with cancer. So I want to take a second to keep that tradition alive and read his words into the record on the 7-year anniversary of his passing. Bob McGough said, "Just one thing I would like to mention. I would just like to say that I know all of us have been affected in some way by this insidious disease. And I would just encourage that anyone that knows someone who is fighting this or dealing with treatments involved with cancer to be a friend. One of the things that happens to cancer patients and those under treatment, depression is a very significant aspect of it. And believe it or not, simply sitting down and talking with people, watching a television show, bringing down dinner, and having something to eat with them goes a long way to helping people deal with that. And I would just like to encourage that if you know someone, please be a friend and being part of the helping process." Those were Bob McGough's words, and he was just such an inspiration to us all. I wanted just to take a second, as my former colleague Wayne Evans and Bill Gaughan did, and honor him and hope that we can all remember Bob by keeping him, his wife Marita, and his entire family in our prayers. Thank you, and that's all I have.
Fourth order, citizens' participation.
I'd like to make an objection.
First on the list, Joan Hodowanitz.
I would like to make a procedural.
You are out of order. First on the list. First on the list is Joan Hodowanitz.
The Sunshine Act.
I am calling you out of order. I am calling you out of order. First on the list, Joan Hodowanitz.
Sunshine Act is now.
Mr. Coyne, please don't make me.
You may if you want. If you want to violate the Sunshine Act.
Mr. Coyne, please sit down. You'll have time to speak in public comment. That's when you have the ability to speak.
That is not the right, but I will sit down until then. Under protest.
Give me a break. Ms.
Joan-
Hodowanitz.
Not if you were.
Joan Hodowanitz, Scranton. Some good news. The Friends of the Scranton Public Library are going to sponsor another book sale just before Christmas. So it will run from Tuesday, November 29th through Sunday, December 4th. at the marketplace at Steamtown on the second floor, right in front of the gym. And it'll be the same hours as basically the mall is open. And they will sell hardcover, softcover books, $1 to $2, CDs, DVDs, talking books, fiction, nonfiction, adult books, teenage books, children's books. Such a deal. I mean, in this time of inflation, where you're going to get a hardcover book, usually in mint condition, for $2, you won't find it. So take advantage of it. Has there been any movement at all, any progress with the police and firefighter contracts?
Based on my understanding, they're still under negotiation.
Okay. I was looking at, how about the 2021 audit? Any change on that?
We got correspondence back, I believe it was today, saying that more than likely the first week of January.
Okie dokie. I was looking at the city's website, and I know that IT is working on reloading documents. And I looked at, under archives, I looked at the labor agreements, and basically they still have to put up the new DPW contract. The controller reports, monthly reports, they're up there through September of 2020. The audits, independent audits, are there through 2018. Previous RFPs and RFQs, none. They just have the page and there's nothing on it. However, the delinquent trash fees, that used to be as of August 31st, it's now as of October 31st, which is progress. It's not interactive, it's not live. We don't have the delinquent real estate fees or charges. But the trash fees, delinquents, as of October 31st, the city is due $10,800,000. So that's a lot of money. I saw that you have an updated payroll preparation tax account as of November 15th. Total collected, $759,000. That equates to 20% of the accounts that are due. I also saw in third order, not in third order, I'm sorry, in the newspaper, the regional stormwater plan. Finally, we're making some progress. But I'm curious, have the county commissioners weighed in on this, that it seems to be involving multiple municipalities in the county?
So the county was approached originally
Yes.
to oversee this authority. At that moment, they denied to oversee that. So
Right.
that's why we're going the route we
I
are.
know
and
that's why
trying
you're
to-
going, but have they said anything since that article
Not
appeared
that
in
I'm
the
aware
paper?
of. Not that I'm aware of.
It'll be interesting if they say anything at their next meeting. And also, the allocation of $2 million from the Workers' Comp Reserve account to the other Post-Employment Benefits Trust. It sounds good on paper. My only question is there any risk to the Workers' Compensation Reserve Fund by transferring that money?
So this money was actually given back to the city by the State Department of Labor and Industry. And one of the recommendations in giving that money back is that we set up an OPEB trust with a
Okay,
portion of that
so
money.
that is, there's no risk that we wouldn't be able to pay workers'
No,
comp?
no.
Okay.
This should help with, any unforeseen increases in workers' comp moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list, Faye Franis.
Faye Franis, Scranton. I want to start off by saying all the caucuses that you've had with the administration, the cabinet members, and directors of the departments that came in, you based your thoughts on your budget, what you should do with the budget based on what they told you. Well, what they told you isn't necessarily true, so I don't know how you base your facts on how to do the budget when the information you got wasn't so. Larry West was here last week or the week before, I believe, last week, I think. And Mr. Schuster asked him, in the DPW, do they work overtime to pick up leaves? And Mr. West said, no. Well, I'm sure that's not a lie, because I personally don't think he'd lie about it. I absolutely think he just doesn't know any better, because he doesn't know what's going on at DPW. He's never down there. That was not true, what he said. They work every night picking up leaves overtime. Chris Smith, the supervisor of the DPW of the refuse, called me last week and told me how they go out every night. They went out last night, they went out tonight, they went out every night last week. He told me himself they go out overtime for leaves, which I don't understand because they have the GPS on the trucks. And I do not believe that they finish work at 2 o'clock, even though Chris Smith said he goes out and sees them and he knows they don't work. He knows they don't get out earlier. But anyway, Larry West told you something that was not true. They work overtime almost every night to pick up leaves. That's nice for the city to, all the overtime. It's not even winter yet and the overtime is already gone. Okay, another thing. Kyle, just because you say something doesn't make it true. And a lot of people think because you're council president that what you say is right. No, it's not. I think you owed Mr. Coyne an apology. He at least had the right to say why he wanted to say against the Sunshine Act, and you shut him right down. He had a right to at least say what he wanted. He probably is right about what he wants, and he probably had a right to stop this for whatever reason, but you didn't give him a chance. Another thing I noticed, before you ran for election, you were super sweet. All of a sudden, right after you got elected, that week after, you tore after Bob Bolas. You really were rotten to him. And then even Marie jumped down her throat. And then even before that once, when Jessica mentioned about Ron Ellman, you did tell her. You looked at her and you said, relax. Even though you lied about it, you said, I didn't mean her. Yes, you did. And that woman that spoke and said how you talked to her, you did say that to Jessica. So I'll be glad when you're gone. Very glad. Because what you say isn't true. You also said, Mr. Schuster last week, you whispered to him about the budget. You said 2 weeks ago, no, you weren't here 2 weeks ago. You weren't here, you didn't have time to come. But you said to him about the raises and everything. You said some of these raises we can't do anything about because they're in the union contracts. No, none of these raises are union contracts. They're all special friends of the mayor. Okay, Jessica?
DPW and clerical are they're contractual raises.
Not the DPW director.
No, but DPW union members and clerical union members.
We're not talking about raises for them.
Well, that's what I was referring to.
This is my time, Mr. Donahue. You can tell me that.
Well, I'm going to correct you if it's.
Like I said, Jessica, you asked the mayor 2 weeks ago, whenever she was here, not much, how are you going to sustain the raises next year? She said, with a big smile on her face, well, if you give me what I want, I probably won't have to have raises. You didn't answer. You didn't get the answer to the question. You didn't press her on it. Why didn't you say you didn't answer my question? She didn't answer it. She just said, I probably won't raise it if you give me what I want now. That's disgusting. And then also, you talked about the killings, about the gay people. I can understand that. But it's not always about gay people. You seem to mention gay people all the time. How about the 4 people in Idaho that got knifed?
Ms. Franis, that's enough. Please.
Listen to me. I mean what I say. There's nothing wrong with what she said. It's just that she's always talking about that particular field, which is fine, but there's also other people in the world. When you're talking about who got killed, those 4 people got brutally knifed in Idaho. No mention about them, but that's okay. So, and Mr. Donahue, I don't want to hear one word from you about what I say. Nothing. You've said enough all the time you've been here. Enough. And I hope you guys do the right thing. I don't know how do you pick someone that's going to take Mr. Donahue's place? Suppose it's a 2-2 tie. Mr. Schuster and Mr. McAndrew want somebody and Jessica and Bill want somebody else. What happens then if it's 2-2? Does the mayor get to break the tie? That's a question.
Yes.
Well, that's convenient. So Jessica and Bill, I guess you get ready to find out who she wants. So that's all. And Kyle, enough.
Next on the list, Doris Kolaski.
Good evening, Council. I would like to read a letter to Council from the Naog area community residents. The overwhelming consensus among the Naog area community residents is that we want the zoning on the 200 and 400 blocks of Colfax Avenue to remain residential. However, in the interest of compromise, we are willing to consider the zoning criteria and permitted uses associated with city neighborhood mixed use as originally proposed by the SAPA consultants. Among other things, this would limit the height of any new structures to 40 feet. And we assume that this height restriction would include any antennae or rooftop HVAC mechanical systems. While we understand that there are other aspects of the proposed expansion that do not fall under the umbrella of zoning, our hope is that council would require the hospital to continue to dialogue with the concerned neighbors about related matters such as ingress, egress, lighting, buffer zones, and the aesthetics of the proposed structures. In that regard, and as proposed by GCMC at the meeting with the neighbors, we support creating a joint GCMC Neighbors Committee to facilitate any agreements going forward for any zoning changes and related issues. We look forward to Council's response, and we thank you for your time and consideration. Naog Area Community Residents. Now, the only other thing I have to ask on that letter is, where are we in the process? I know this letter was sent in, and somebody had mentioned that it went to that somebody mentioned that somebody went to Don King's office. I don't know who or whatever. Are we supposed to be communicating with Don King on what we want, or are we supposed to just keep communicating with you people?
So I believe Don is working on the final adjustments to the zoning plan. That still needs to be sent to the county for a 30-day period before it could come back to council. So that's probably going to take us through the end of this year. So it will be removed, the current legislation that's on the table will be removed from the agenda, and it will have to start over at the beginning of the year.
Okay, and
At the earliest, right? But that's...
how will we as residents know what Don is proposing and the changes?
I'll reach out to Don. Could you leave a copy of the letter?
The letter?
Yes. And I'll make sure that he gets, that copy.
Okay. Sure.
But then you could, I mean, you're free to reach out to Don on your own, but
We
yes.
have reached out to Don twice, I think, and we haven't heard anything back.
Okay.
So that's why we thought we weren't sure we were even reaching out to the right people at this point.
Okay. And I'll check with him too to see if we could get something set up to meet with the neighbors before that's submitted.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next on the list, Norma Jeffries.
Good evening, Norma Jeffries, Scranton resident. Sometimes I wonder if I should be first or last. Anyone that knows me, I'm not a confrontational person. And when I hear these, there's always a time and a place. And that's how I always look at things. There's a time and a place for everything to be discussed. And we all have our voice, and we should have our voice, but there's a way to have our voice. But I'm get started with my time here tonight. I missed the discussion that you were having at the beginning of council. Sometimes I wonder if it's better to sit at home because I can hear it better at home and hear the replay, because I couldn't hear the discussion about the letters that came in for council replacement. I couldn't hear all of that because I was going to talk about it tonight. I brought the paper in because I was a little bit disappointed when I saw the names that were there. And I was disappointed because it seems that it's going round and round in a circle. Do you have to be on the school board, and you're off the school board, then you come to city council? Or you're doing something else in some other board, and you come to city council? The diversity is not there. And then I say, well, Norma, then if the diversity isn't there, you didn't put your letter in to break up the Old Boy Network. You know, why didn't you put it in? I was canvassing for some folks to put up their name and to send their letter in so that there could be more diversity on city council, to be more representative of what the city is. So I was sort of a little bit disappointed when I read this morning and saw the names and where they had been. Because as I thought about our city council right now, I think, is it 3 of you out of the 5 who are on the school board, you know, which I was never on a school board, and I just come here to talk. But the thing that I wanted to talk about tonight, that I wrote about, was the talk last week from the DPW with Larry West, the fire chief, judge, and the police chief. And I have to say that it was very informative, the information that they shared, because I was able to listen and to really understand a lot about what was going on. One of the things that I had a question for Fireman Chief Judge was that he gave a demonstration. One of his slides had all the community involvement that he has, which is very good. But he went from first grade or kindergarten to 4th grade. I have heard him talk at senior groups, which is very good. I've learned a lot about the fire protection, your smoke detectors, where you should have them, the program that they have in the city to come and replace them. But there was a group that was missing. It was the group of 5th through high school. That group, there was nothing mentioned. So yes, the kids get it from kindergarten to 4th grade, lay on their tummies when they have the fire estates close to the ground. But if they're not in those classes before 1 to 4, when do the other kids get the training? I also thought about the colleges and things, and I thought, oh, well, they're missing. But then I thought, well, maybe they take care of their own fire prevention codes, which they probably do. So that was a question I had for him. And for DPW, when they talked about the equipment, I gotta hurry up, the equipment that they have and they bought, and the leaf cleaning, I heard the tornado or whatever, that gray bit machine come down my street on Sunday morning at 7 o'clock. I couldn't believe what this big noise was, and it was this machine sucking up the leaves. But down at the corner of Monroe and Gibson Street, someone has put up like a board to keep the leaves from going down into the gutter. And DPW could at least help that person, whoever did that, to keep the leaves from going there, because the leaves are all piled up. But the board's doing its job, but, you know, someone should help this person out, who's ever doing that. Also, with the calling about holes in your streets and patching, you know, that's, to me, it's not working, because my concerns on my street is just terrible. There's this great big hole right before I pull out, and I hit it all the time. I call and ask, can they fix it for me, and I get nowhere. So I don't know if that's under DPW or what, but I do call that pothole hotline. And then that was that. And then with the police chief, you know, I have to say what a great job he's doing as well. He's been to some community groups as well and explained the services. I have to agree with him now, though. And when he talked about the security and all at the doors and things, I sort of understood that a little bit better. So I thanked him for that he took the time to really explain that. And then one more thing, I want to thank all of the officers that come and are here each week, and they stand there and they protect us, you know. So I appreciate that, and I wanted to tell him that, but I wasn't here last week, so I hope he knows that we appreciate anything that he does for us in the city of Scranton to keep us safe. So we have a good Thanksgiving. We have a lot to be thankful for, and we just should think about that sometimes, okay? Bye.
Thank you, Norma. Next on the list is Charles Cortez.
Good evening, members of council. My name is Charles Cortese. My family and I are residents and multiple property owners in the 200 block of Wheeler Avenue. I'm here concerning the zoning of the 200 block of Colfax Avenue, which affects our property in the 200 block of Wheeler Avenue. The rear of our properties, all 120 feet, will be adjacent to the proposed parking garage. We have pride of ownership in our properties. Geisinger CMC plan will evaluate our properties, and our tax base will not reflect this evaluation. We do not need a degree from Princeton University in property values to know that parking garages will decrease our property values. The lost revenue from Geisinger CMC expansion will need to be made up by the residents and property owners of Scranton. We wish to see the 200 block of Colfax Avenue to remain residential with permit usage associated with city neighborhood use as originally proposed by the SAPA consultants. Please consider what I have said concerning the parking garage and the rezoning issue that comes with it. Please do not make us a victim of collateral damage for the sake of Geisinger CMC aggressive expansion plans. In the evening, when the sun sets, we still remain in the NAIOC community because we are citizens and homeowners of Scranton. We wish to remain there and live our lives in the peace and tranquility of our residentially zoned area. Now, in response to what Doris had read, I was going to ask if council would take a few minutes from their busy schedule and holiday commitment to give us an update as to where we are in the future, and that you already did, and that I appreciate it. And I want to say have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You too. Next on the list, Dave Dobson.
Good evening, Council. Dave Dobson, resident taxpayer. This week in the news, we have an article about pension losses. We also had some reports on a Bitcoin company, FTX. And a few weeks ago, I also heard that some of our pension plans are investing in these entities and that they're really not much more than Pyramid Club. It's very concerning. I don't care much for pension directors where you drop the money off from that's collected in town here and from either the police forces and fire or whomever, and then some are taxes, paid by taxes, additional taxes, and then we dump it into a bank's coffers and they go out and decide that this is a good investment. We lost $26 million in 2008 out of the firemen and police pension fund. And it caused quite a bit of problems. I'm sure you people remember. I think you're older than 30 years old mostly. And it's very concerning with these contracts coming up that have to be settled. And of course, taxes are going up a little bit probably, but it gets really disgusting when some slipshot from Wall Street that doesn't even know how to dress, looks like he staggered out of a party in sweatpants and a t-shirt, gets to control billions of dollars. And now on the news tonight, a lot of the money was pilfered before it even, right as it started to collapse. So who knows where that went. And I think in the future we need to get these contracts that these entities, investment houses and stuff cannot do this. They can't just choose whatever they want to sink the money into and then say, oops. Because nobody was severely punished over that $26 million. And that's more than most people, possibly 20 people would make in their lifetime if they're at the lower rungs of the ladder. So on the swimming pool, I don't know if that's live or dead, but let's have a study on that, and we'll just have to resume that in the spring and figure out what we can and can't do. Personally, I can't take another 10 or 15% tax increase either, even as much as I'd be sympathetic to a swimming pool. And on the vote 2 weeks ago or whatever, it came to my attention that 55% of people, roughly over 45, voted Republican. And I'll admit I'm a partisan. It's time to start concerning yourself, because they have some pretty crazy things to do, ideas for Social Security and Medicare. And you're not going to have 40 million people marching out of their houses looking for a job someday to supplement their income. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. If they can even work, if they're any kind of physical condition to work. And it's up to the, actually, what I meant to say also was that the younger generation saved Social Security this time, because their vote far exceeded the vote for the elderly people that just keep taking the same con every election cycle. Thank you and have a good night. You owe me two seconds next week.
Thank you. That exhausts the sign-in sheet for this evening. Would anyone else like to address council?
Tom Coyne, Manuka. First off, on what I plan to speak about here tonight. Looking at the bills before the board, I see 5C for the OPEB. Line 415 puts an incentive to collapse the fund for city revenue. It should be stated that if it ceased to exist, the entire fund should be rolled into the existing retirement accounts, not to the general essential government funds. By having it roll into the general funds, it then gives an incentive to destroy this fund to be siphoned elsewhere than where its intent is to be. 5.3b3, the business administrator should not be the original trustee, because the original trustee winds up putting in investments that get locked in for a certain period of time, and if they get moved, they get penalties. If we're going to have a trustee from it, the trustee should take over from the beginning, not the business administrator. 5.5, the Board of Trustees. It's listed as the board has 5 trustees. Now, 4 of those 5 trustees are the mayor's appointees. That seems a little unbalanced. I think as a retirement fund, it should consist of the mayor, council president, maybe a fire and police representative, and someone from the public position that was voted in, not assigned. I object to both 5E and 5G. 8E and 8G. 8G and 8E and 8G were voted in and failed on introduction. Failure does not mean they move to 8th order. When things get tabled, they move to 8th order. It should have been reintroduced. It should have not been on 8. It's a procedural error. And I'm tired of when something gets voted down by this board and it's unliked that it gets brought up again to vote for the same exact thing. It's a done issue, it was voted on, and the proper procedure is to bring it back in the following year, not to regurgitate it. It's an abuse of council's leniency to be able to reconsider something. If it's voted on, especially at this point, it should be dead. Now, as for the objection that I tried to bring forward in council chambers and the president struck me down. Section 710.1C of the Sunshine Act prevents anyone from attending a public meeting to object to a perceived violation at any time during the meeting. Not in fourth order, not in beginning, any time. And if you're going to represent the state, maybe it would be nice for council president to learn the state law. What I was bringing up was Reading Eagle Company versus the City Council of Reading, 627A 2D 305. The reason stated for a public agency must be specific, indicating a real discrete matter. Saying personnel matters is insufficient. If you are having an executive session, if it is legal, you have to state the case number, what it's about, and why there was an executive session. You do not have to go into details, but by law you are required to give the people in this body enough information so that they are informed whether or not an executive session was truly valid. Personnel matters has been specifically struck down, though it is in the code where it says personnel matters is an excuse. It is insufficient because it gives no one in the citizens an idea of whether or not it was due to dismissal, suspension, disciplining, hearing complaints or charges brought against, or periodical personnel evaluations. Those are the type of things that get brought forward to say why personnel matters were there. And I objected to saying personnel matters because by law it is not sufficient. And I protest I was shut down from that because it's a violation of the Sunshine Act.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address council?
Hi, everybody. I'm Rick Little. I'm from Scranton. I'd like to talk about 8G and the old business of the program, which says authorizing appointment of Krista Murray, 1622, her address, as member of the Scranton Housing Authority, replacing Thomas Galella, Sr., whose term expired September 27th, 2022. Ms. Murray's 5-year term is effective upon execution of the resolution and will expire in 2027. Is this something that you haven't voted on yet?
We have not, no.
No. Okay. I'm just trying to understand, because I've been trying to understand who's running what for about 8 years now. And if I'm evicted and homeless, I'm finished. I just turned 70 years old, and I've been living in Scranton Housing Authority since 2009. As to the democracy involved with the old business 8G that I brought up, and the SHA Board of Commissioners, Krista Murray and Thomas Galella, Mayor Cognetti had a plea to get involved with democracy, to get involved and call the boards, which I did, and then they came back and said, you have to send a resume, which I did, and this was a long time ago, and I finally did a right to know to trying to find out what was going on, and then I did a right to know against Scranton Housing Authority. That has expired. It's starting to look like I'm going to have to do a FOIL request because I just can't find out what's going on. Anyway, I'm running for the Board of Commissioners. I'm a tenant there. There's big problems there. I just had my lease terminated on November 18th, 2 days before my birthday last week. And, you know, they do this to me all the time, just keep me in this litigation going on and on. They terminated my lease before saying I failed to recertify, you know, and they sent me another notice. You failed to, here's your recertification date. I went to it, and they said, she's not here. Mara Decker's not here. Okay. And then they send me the lease termination. Another big part of it is the bug wrangling that's been going on for years. Bed bugs. And there's a piece in my lease where they have a vendor named Orkin, and they're supposed to be able to just do anything they want. They leave notices out. If you don't have every one of your possessions in a bag, you have to pay us $250, and this is from SHA. But you can't ever find out who it's really from. And then they come and they broke in my door again last week for this bug thing. I don't have one bug. I've done everything about bugs. If a bug did get in there, the bug would be dead in 48 hours, you know, with that earth stuff where they just can't live. But they want to spray all these chemicals in, and I can't take these chemicals. I know about these chemicals. I've been a building manager. I've dealt with Orkin for 30 years. And they're not going to come into my apartment and spray all these chemicals, a lot of them that have perfumes in them, that will attract bugs. I've taken care of the bugs. Yet my building lets my faucet leak for 6 years, like 6 gallons for 6 years. It's crazy what they're doing. They're using this bug wrangling, and when they came to my door, they said, the person upstairs, same person who flooded my apartment, he has bed bugs. You have to, we're going to spray up there in a few minutes, and you better let us spray here, or else, because they're all going to come down, which is what the bug wrangling is. They spray, they move it around, and they use bed bugs as a main litigation tool. So many people evicted illegally. Anyway, I want to be on the Board of Commissioners, and I would like to see the record, because from what I've seen, there's scraps of paper.
Thank you, Mr. Little.
Anyway.
Would anyone else like to address council?
Marie Schumacher. I would like to know what is going on with 8A. I'm surprised the state has not penalized us for not having our master plan submitted for a long time. I mean, I understand that it's the residents of the upper hill section and versus Geisinger, but a decision has to be made at some time. Why not now? Why?
Well, so the changes we made citywide would require us to submit it back to Lackawanna County. So we're waiting for the planning office to submit that back to.
And do we have an estimated date for that?
I don't know.
Another one, the stormwater. I did see, you know, I understand now why you were saying you were going to have it done by the end of the year, but it's obviously not going to be. But one of the things that really bothers me about what's said is that the ratio of pervious and impervious property, which is going to, if it goes through, it would be, that's how you would calculate your fee. And people in Scranton are going to get the biggest part because it's an old town. People build houses close together and they don't have big yards, as opposed to the townships and stuff out in the suburbia. They have big properties with a lot of impervious property, so they are going to get a much lower fee than the people in Scranton, and that bothers me, certainly. And then something for Mr. Donahue, sort of personally, you know the problems this city has with the growing nonprofits, and you are going to some place where you could do something about that, and I hope you won't forget it. And there are other people there who have tried other things that you might get together with, and I certainly think there has to be some kind of a ceiling put on that, so I hope you. The other thing, I'm again bouncing around here, but when the police chief was here, I didn't hear one word about drugs. Certainly drugs are an issue in this city, a big issue. Well, they're a big issue almost any place. So, but why did we not hear anything about drugs? Why didn't you guys ask a question about the status of drugs? That was disappointing. And now I would like to go back again to last week's things, and I'll read the list, and then you can tell me if you followed up on any of these things. The police and fire contracts, the leachate content, the pocket park at Linden and Wyoming, the acoustics in this very room, and the Meadowbrook status of obtaining the rights of way for Meadowbrook 2 project. The street signs, do we really still have a program? And what, is it regionalized? That would have been my understanding at one point in time. And when will that project end? And yeah, I'll stop there for now. Anybody have anything on any of those projects?
Do you want to?
So I did send an email on Wednesday, the next day, and I had 1 pocket park update, number 2 council's chamber acoustics, 3 street sign plans, if there's any, 4 to Meadowbrook right away. In previous answers we got, there was 44 right-of-ways. I don't know if I could be accurate on that number, but that's the number I got, that there was 44 rights-of-ways, and we secured 1. Now, that one that we secured is the one that you knew about from probably a half a year ago. The other night when I think Mr. Cotillo was here, he stated that we did not secure any since then. So there's 44, we've secured 1, and we haven't secured 1 since. But I did send that in on Wednesday as well. Also, the vac truck operating at night, what's the current schedule, and then the type of information on the content and concentration of the leachate. I did send it over to Mr. Voldenberg. Have we heard a response on any of those?
So we did get a response from Mr. Voldenberg today.
Okay.
This morning, I believe it was. So we have not received a follow-up response from Scranton Tomorrow regarding the pocket park updates. We did discuss with Mark McGlory and ECTV about the chamber acoustics, and they're going to be helping us out with that project. We did send another follow-up to Larry West regarding street sign plans, and we had no response as of this morning. We haven't had a response, on Meadowbrook, we did send an additional request to the Law Department, Andrew Cotillo, Jess Eskra, Eileen Cipriani, and Larry West. Larry West indicated at the budget session no additional easements had been secured. He did indicate 38 remain, and Andrew Cotillo quoted 44 in his late July email, so we do have to double check on that number. We did get a response on the vac truck operating at night. The DPW, and what the response says, the DPW had 2 vac leaf trucks in service up to last week. As of last week, there's 1 working throughout the city. Scott Petrofus, DPW fleet manager, advised last week that the leaf bag trucks will continue to follow the paper and cardboard recycling schedule. He further advised at the time that the 2 leaf vac trucks were in operation in the city do not follow the recyclable schedule. So the pickup and the bags follow the recycling schedule, but the vac trucks don't. The leaf pickup teams may work up overtime into the early evening for leaf pickup. Any resident with concerns may contact DPW dispatch at 570-348-4178, and they will advise the team to address their leaf issue. In terms of the content and concentration in Leach It, we did reach out to Jeremy Hall at PA American Water, and they will get back to us and advise regarding content and concentration in Leach It, in addition to landfill requests to process treated Leach It, which is a reverse osmosis process via the Roaring Brook tributary. But Jeremy has been out of the office this week. He will be back on Monday, so we're hoping to get more information on that.
Okay, well, thank you, and I just want to say I hope each and all of us here have a lot to be thankful for this week, and enjoy your
Thank you, you
Thanksgiving
too.
holiday.
Would anyone else like to address council?
Delmar Guzevich, Scranton City taxpayer. First, I'd like to say that Dr. Rothschild was absolutely in the right to bring up the violence at Club Q the other night. I do not think it's a coincidence that a gay club was shot up on a night that it was having a drag show on the Trans Day of Remembrance. This is something that people on the far right have been pushing for and have been asking for and have been outright demanding for a long time now. The encouragement of violence against LGBT members of our community, violence against trans people, violence specifically targeting so-called groomers who are involved in drag shows. This happens far too often. These people are deliberately targeted for their identity. And if we want to talk about other acts of violence, when a straight white man dies in a random act of violence, it is rarely because he is straight, because he is white, or because he is a male. Gay men do not go into straight clubs to kill people for being straight. Women do not stalk, harass, and then shoot up fraternities because they don't get laid. Women do not encourage other women to go to Eastern Europe, specifically to rape Slavic men. Black people do not go into predominantly white grocery stores to kill people. This doesn't happen. And it is absolutely imperative that we call out hate crimes for what they are when they happen and do everything in our power to stop them, to prevent them again. To quote the founder of the Black Panther Party, Huey Newton, we must all stop acts of fascism, or else fascism, with their acts of violence, will most assuredly stop us all. What is the city of Scranton doing to prevent that from happening here? And I ask that with legitimacy, not accusation. Is there any measures that the city of Scranton is taking to curb, prevent, and end white supremacy, far-right extremism here in the city?
Not to my knowledge, but let me check with the police chief to see what programs they have.
It's a very telling answer, Mr. Donahue. Thank you. Now, we're coming up on Thanksgiving in 2 days, and there are people in our community who aren't going to have family members visiting them because of these acts of violence against them, being targeted for who they are, whether it be because they're a person of color, a woman, LGBT, a different religion perhaps, non-religious even. And I think that's definitely something we have to take with us as we travel on Thursday to see our families, would have our families come stay with us. Is that not everyone has that privilege, because other people have been asking for violence to keep our families, our neighbors, our communities from having that privilege of having our loved ones in our lives on this earth. Now more onto my own special interest. Thanksgiving is also the most dangerous time of the year to travel at all. Weather conditions combined with the absolute unprecedented level of automotive traffic on the roads has left over 10,000 people dead over the last 4 years, with 2,414 deaths caused by car accidents last Thanksgiving alone. And this is because the people do not have an alternative to transit. We cannot take the train to go visit our family. The buses are inadequate. Flying is expensive, but that is an option. We certainly can't walk or bike in our communities to visit. Our only option currently is the automobile. So on Thursday or on Wednesday or on Friday, whenever you're traveling, drive safe, be smart, and remember that not everyone's coming home. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address council? Mr. Voldenberg?
Fifth order, 5A motions.
Mr. King, do you have any motions or comments?
No, I would like to continue pursuing the street sign situation, though. We seem to keep talking about it. We don't seem to be getting any answers on that. So that's something I'd like to see us pursue with, DPW, I guess, is handling that. Also, something I'd like to see us pursue as a city council, someone mentioned the nonprofits. One of the things, even if we can't, I'm hoping that we can get some legislation to address the number of nonprofits, because most urban cities, we have a tremendous amount of nonprofits, universities, schools, churches, federal buildings, state buildings, county buildings, city buildings, and it's an eroding tax base. But one of the things that's frustrating is that none of those are on the tax rolls, but some of the universities have private companies that are operating in their buildings. I think that's a bit of a loophole, and I'm wondering if there's any type of legislation that we could push through to at least try to reap some of the benefits or reap some taxes from those private companies that are operating in nonprofits. So that's something I want to try to look at moving down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schuster, do you have any motions or comments?
Just some of the comments tonight. I did get an email from a resident up near Pine Street. They have 2 cars that park on Pine Street. They lived there for 49 years. I did forward that over to Mr. Voldenberg, and he is exploring that with the police department to get an answer for this gentleman and his wife living on in that area. And I also got another email regarding leaf collection. They had their leaves out, so it does kind of answer the question that the recycling schedule is on that schedule. You see the leaf and cardboard schedule, but the leaf trucks aren't working in the same order as the
vac trucks are not.
The vac trucks aren't working in the same order as the cardboard pickup. This individual put their leaves out on the 11th of November as collection was supposed to occur in that neighborhood, but as of the 21st, they didn't have the leaves picked up as of yet. So, Mr. Vollenberg, could we just send correspondence to see if the leaf pickup, are we on time? Is there some kind of a schedule and where we are at this point with that? It's the 1900 block of Myrtle Street. All right, Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Dr. Rothschild, do you have any motions or comments?
Yes, just a couple of comments. Just wanted to respond to a few things from public comment. The first of which being that I'm not going to apologize for bringing up the shooting that happened at Club Q. I think that's insane. And I have brought up many other community events and tragedies and deaths during the announcement period throughout my tenure here on City Council. I address a lot more than just LGBTQ issues, but it is something, as I mentioned, close to my heart, being a member of that community. There are no other members on this council who are LGBTQ or identify as that. So I'm going to continue to bring up issues that I believe are pertinent to that community because I know no one else will, and I am proud to represent that community, and I have no problem doing that. Also, while I spoke, I did mention how I'm disgusted with all of the mass shootings that happen around our country. It is a disgrace in the country that we live, that we allow these mass shootings to continue and do nothing about it. I did mention that. It is something very important to me personally. I am certainly not going to every week mention all the mass shootings that occur because there are so many, which makes it even worse. But I did just want to address that. I also wanted to address the council vacancy and appointment process that will be coming up. No one makes decisions for me. I make the decisions based on the facts, on legislation. I thoroughly review legislation. I'm thoroughly reviewing the resumes that we have in hand that we've received over the past week. I have not made a decision on the council appointment already because we haven't even had interviews, and that's a very important process to me because I want to see what the person has to say. You can't just judge the person based on their resume or cover letter, and we're going to have questions for those people. We went through the same process previously with openings that I was a part of, and so I object to any insinuation that I'm here to vote for any one person or any certain way. I take these decisions very seriously, and I know my colleagues do as well, and I will continue to do that here. That is all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McAndrew, do you have any motions or comments?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a couple. I just have a couple. Mr. Voldenberg, could we check with the city IT regarding DPW contract not being up on the website?
I will, sir.
And in terms of nonprofits, I've actually already started to get to work on that. I've started by reviewing all the bills that have died in this session to see if they need a legislative sponsor for the next session. And I've also started collecting some legislative research in terms of nonprofits and how to best address nonprofits, especially in municipalities that have over a certain percentage of nonprofits. So number one on my list at the moment. And that's all I have for tonight. Mr. Voldenberg?
5B for introduction, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of a tax and revenue anticipation note, series of 2023, in the principal amount not to exceed $5 million, providing for the dated date, interest rate, maturity date, redemption provisions, payment in place of payment in respect of the note, accepting the proposal attached hereto as Exhibit B from the financial institution named therein for the purchase of the note, naming a sinking fund depository paying agent of the note, authorizing the proper officers of the city to execute and deliver the note and certain other documents and certificates in connection therewith, authorizing and directing the preparation, certification, and filing of the necessary documents with the Department of Community and Economic Development of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, setting forth a form of the note.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5C for introduction, an ordinance authorizing the establishment of an other post-employment benefits plan and OPEB trust.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
On the question,
On the question, there was a comment that came up in public, during the public session tonight about how the account rolls over. Mr. Voldenberg, could we reach out to the administration or Larry West to see the explanation of how this account rolls over into the general fund?
I will, Mr. Schuster.
Thank you.
anyone else on the question?
I'd like to make a motion to reconsider the introduction of the ordinance
Wait.
amending contractor licensing requirements and related provisions. Excuse me. I pull that back at this time.
Anyone else on the question on 5C? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
Now I would like to make a motion to reconsider introduction of an ordinance amending the contractor licensing requirements and related provisions.
Second.
There is a motion on the floor and a second to reconsider introduction of the contractor licensing ordinance. On the question,
On the question, I would be in favor of introducing this if we could omit the last paragraph of the of page 4. In the last paragraph, it does make reference to new inspectors and repurposing of positions, which have not been approved in the 2023 budget.
are you making a motion?
I'm making a friendly amendment to Mr. King's reintroduction.
So there's a motion.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to omit that paragraph that references the new positions.
So there's motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second to include a friendly amend, or to amend this legislation. On the question, on the motion to amend, on the question, I would be more than willing to discuss that, but off the top of my head, I can't in good faith vote for that. But this is only the first of 3 readings, so we will have time to do that. So I'll vote against your motion, Mr. Schuster, but I will entertain that as a discussion moving into next week.
As will I.
All those in favor of amending 5D signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Nay.
Opposed.
The motion fails. Anyone else on the question to reconsider introduction of the ordinance amending the contractor licensing requirements? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No? No?
The ayes have it, and so moved.
5D for introduction, an ordinance amending the contractor licensing requirements and related provisions.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5D be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5E for introduction, a resolution authorizing the allocation of $2 million of funds from the Workers' Compensation Reserve Account to the Other Post-Employment Benefits Trust.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5E be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5F for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into an agreement between the City of Scranton and Fidelity Deposit and Discount Bank for custodial service, for other post-employment benefits plan, and an OPEB trust.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5F be introduced into its proper committee.
Second.
So moved.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5G for introduction, a resolution ratifying and approving the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton to the PennDOT Multimodal Transportation Fund for up to $2 million to be used towards the Pittston Avenue Infrastructure Streetscape Project.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5G be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5H for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to accept on behalf of the City of Scranton Fire Department a grant from Pennsylvania American Water Firefighting Support Grant in the amount of $1,000.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5H be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5I for introduction, a resolution authorizing appointment of Michael Villa, 703 Pittston Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania 18505, as a member of the Human Relations Commission, replacing Teresa Osborne, who resigned November 2nd, 2022. Mr. Villa will fill the unexpired seat that will expire February 23rd, 2026.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5I be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5J, previously tabled, file the council number 36, 2022, enacting the rental ordinance of 2022 by repealing and replacing the city's rental property code.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5J be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5K, previously tabled, resolution number 161, 2022, authorizing appointment of Krista Murray, 1622 Roslyn Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania 18510, as a member of the Scranton Housing Authority, replacing Thomas Galella Sr., whose term expired September 27, 2022. Ms. Murray's 5-year term is effective upon execution of the resolution and will expire September 27, 2027.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5K be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, like previously stated, my vote, no vote, will be one of principle, procedure, policy. I have nothing against this young lady. I don't know her. I'm sure she's more than qualified, but it's a shame that she falls under guest disappointment where the process wasn't followed. And I'll just expand a little bit more. So after the mayor, who's supposed to appoint, like we all agree upon that, after 30 days, when she doesn't, it's our responsibility. So we tried to do that. And once the legal department got wind of it, all of a sudden, they found somebody. The same day we were introducing the gentleman to retain him who wished to do so. So, like I said earlier, I mean, if we stop following the rules, then there's no rules.
Anyone else on the question?
I would just like to echo my colleague here with this piece of legislation. I do think this person has a great resume, and I would have liked to seen her appointed to possibly a different board that may have a vacancy at this time.
Anyone else on the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
The ayes have it, and so moved.
Sixth order, 6A, reading by title, file the council number 34, 2022, an ordinance ratifying and approving the submission of the fee agreement for a temporary construction access agreement and easement for repair work to be performed on the Lackawanna Avenue Bridge.
You've heard reading by title of item 6A. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6A pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
6B, reading by title, file of the council number 35, 2022, an ordinance. Amending file of the council number 93, 2021, an ordinance as amended, entitled, appropriating funds for the expenses of the city government for the period commencing on the first day of January 2022 to and including December 31st, 2022, by the adoption of the General City Operating Budget 2022, as amended by transferring $41,079.32 from contingency account number, as noted, to Civil Service Commission account number, as noted, to cover expenses.
You've heard reading by title of item 6B. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6B pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
6C, reading by title, file the council number 37, 2022, an ordinance repealing certain permit, license, and fee requirements and amending certain other permit, license, and fee requirements.
You've heard reading by title of item 6C. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6C pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, did we get an answer that stated, so this is another document here that states that there's new positions that have yet to be approved. Did we get an answer stating that if we were to amend the current budget, that this would not
So I
have any
believe
bearing on
the
that?
backup documents were for the 3 pieces of legislation. I think they were folded into one, and there was an explanation for each. So I don't believe this pertains to any, this specific piece pertains to any positions being needed or required. I think it's just updating those license fee, those permit license and fees, such as, I think billiards and, billiards and bowling alleys were the only ones, because some of the other ones just don't exist anymore, right?
On the question, I agree. This, it's not included in the legislation. I believe what Councilman Schuster is referring to is included in the backup to the legislation, the cover sheet that we received that explains the package of legislation that we had received from OCD on these 3 different pieces. So I don't think it's necessary to table it. I believe we could move this forward. I don't think that has anything to do with this piece of legislation.
Was that given to us, though, from the administration? Did we get that answer at some
We
point?
did receive an email today from the administration. The rental ordinance itself does not add any new positions. It gives city housing inspectors explicit additional authority to inspect rental properties, among other changes. Of course, enforcement of this ordinance will be much more effective with the additional housing inspectors requested in the budget, but doesn't seem like our vote on the budget will have any impact on this package of legislation.
Okay. And that was late in the day today, correct?
Yes.
Anyone else on the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
7th order, 7A, for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for adoption, Resolution Number 156, 2022, authorizing the Mayor, Office of Economic and Community Development, and other appropriate city officials for the City of Scranton to execute and enter into an agreement with Lieber Electric, Inc. to provide the electrical component of the replacement of the HVAC unit at the Public Safety Building.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chairperson for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7A.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Dr. Rothschild,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew.
Yes.
Mr. Donahue.
Yes, I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for adoption, Resolution Number 157, 2022, authorizing the mayor, Office of Economic and Community Development, and other appropriate city officials for the city of Scranton to execute and enter into an agreement with Scranton Electric Heating and Cooling, Inc., to provide the mechanical component of the replacement of the HVAC unit at the Public Safety Building.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chairperson for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Dr. Rothschild,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew.
Yes.
Mr. Donahue.
Yes, I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted.
7C for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for adoption, Resolution Number 159, 2022, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to amend the agreement with Northeast Inspection Consultants for third-party inspection services.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chairperson for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7C.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Dr. Rothschild,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Mr. Donahue.
Yes, I hereby declare item 7C legally and lawfully adopted.
7D for consideration by the Committee on Public Works for adoption, Resolution Number 160, 2022, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into Outfall 072 Stormwater Line Transfer Agreement and assignment of easements and bill of sale with Pennsylvania American Water Company.
What is the recommendation for the chairperson for the Committee on Public Works?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Works, I recommend final passage of item 7D.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Dr. Rothschild,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew, Mr. Donahue.
Yes, I hereby declare item 7D legally and lawfully adopted.
7E for consideration by the Committee on Public Works for adoption, Resolution Number 162, 2022, amending Resolution Number 15, 2022, a resolution entitled Amending File to Council Number 8, 2022, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract between the City of Scranton and Riley Associates to provide consulting engineering services to change the legislation from an ordinance to a resolution.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Public Works?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Works, I recommend final passage of item 7E.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Dr. Rothschild,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew, Mr. Donahue.
Yes, I hereby declare item 7E legally and lawfully adopted.
7F, previously tabled, Resolution Number 143, 2022, approving the intermunicipal transfer of a restaurant liquor license R13296, currently owned by Seraphini's LLC and located at 984 East Drinker Street, Dunmore, Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania 18512, to Vincenzo Seco, Inc., located at 131 North Main Avenue, Scranton, Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania 18504, as required by the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7F.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Dr. Rothschild,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew, Mr. Donahue.
Yes, I hereby declare item 7F legally and lawfully adopted.
Eighth order, 8A, file the council number 9, 2022.
This piece of legislation is the updated zoning ordinance. It has been continued to be tabled to allow for additional input and any changes.
8B, Resolution Number 143, 2022.
This resolution was taken from the table and moved to seventh order for a final vote this evening.
8C, filed to Council Number 32, 2022.
This ordinance is for permit parking on the 1500 block of Vine Street, and it was tabled until a public hearing could be held this evening. It will possibly be brought back next week for a final vote. We do have to look into some things that were brought up in the public hearing.
8D, filed to Council Number 33, 2022.
This ordinance is the 2023 city operating budget, and it was tabled until a public hearing could be held this evening. It will be placed on next week's agenda for a final vote.
8E, filed to Council Number 36, 2022.
This legislation is the updated rental ordinance for 2022. It has been taken from the table and placed in fifth order on tonight's agenda.
8F, Resolution Number 158, 2022.
This resolution is a transfer of a restaurant liquor license. It has been tabled until a public hearing is held on November 29th at 5:45 p.m.
8G, Resolution Number 161, 2022.
This resolution is an appointment to the Scranton Housing Authority. It was taken from the table and put in fifth order on tonight's agenda. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.